Thank
Bring the crowd in. Yes.
Here we go. You are live as well, Jeff.
That's great. Well, welcoming our audience as they enter and join us and say hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Say hello. Yes, and it's today is the special Valentine's edition of our show, and I'll just have to say it. Ask that question. If it's Mondays, it's time for
Ask the Oracle.
Here we are, and it's Monday. Monty and Amy, how are you? And how are things?
We're good. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Galentine's Day. Happy Palentine's Day.
Lupercalia Day.
Yes, Lupercalia Day is the big one.
Yeah, but no sacrificing of goats. No one. No, don't.
No, okay. All right, not this year.
Those days are gone, right, Barbara?
So this is always a meeting of love, right? We love our tribe, our Oracle tribe, and we love feeling connected, which is the main thing about love.
And friends, and like
yeah.
Barbara.
But hi, Barbara. We're so happy that you're here with us, Barbara Biziou, our very old friend who's not old.
Old friend, right? Now it's all about friends. All about friends. Yes, for sure.
You know what's interesting? Because I've read in a few places that there's an epidemic of loneliness before the pandemic.
Correct.
That they even with young people. So I'm sure we would all agree it's probably being confronted with so much that makes us feel disconnected or not a part of, even though we can all connect so well now, right?
Yeah. And in the UK, they actually had appointed a minister of loneliness, or I don't think they called it that. They called it something like that. But because the problem is so harsh, and that was before the pandemic.
And also it's exacerbated by the pandemic, of course, to make us feel isolated. So that's why we look forward to Ask the Oracles every week. It's a wonderful way to connect. But talking about love, it's such a sort of undefinable energy. I mean, it's like,
why do you look at me when you say
to you for articulation of it, because you're such a great articulator.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. Well,
I mean, they always talk about science. It's not like you can't define love with scientifically, or can you?
Well, when I first noticed I was in love with Amy, I just like to watch her live.
That's a good definition.
You just sit back and you just like to watch this person. You love when they call. You get stuff from them you can't get from anybody else. I mean, but having a holiday for it, I think it's so confrontational.
Well, we're kind of rebellious with holidays in general. We like to do rituals when we want to do rituals, when we need to do rituals. We don't want any rules, right?
Right. And Halloween is the only day we don't get dressed up. I don't wear the hat or anything.
We get presents whenever we want. But welcome, Barbara.
Well, thank you. But I love what you were saying, though, because this basically is a made-up holiday, Valentine's Day, and it really comes from ancient fertility holidays where it was so important, to have fertility. So back to what you were saying, Monte, Lupercalia, where, you were laughing about the goat, but they actually would walk around with a goat, and single people would touch the goat's skin as a symbol of fertility. And then the thing I love the best, and it kept going on for centuries, is that all the single women would put their name in an urn. Even if they couldn't write, they'd put a symbol of what their name was. And the single men would pick a name out. And in ancient Rome, then they spent the night with that person because that would ensure more fertility. And then in the Middle Ages, it got to the point where when you picked someone's name, they would put a heart on your sleeve, and that's where wearing your heart on your sleeve comes from. And they would vow to take care of that woman for a whole year. Imagine that. So yeah, it's really where it comes from.
That's better than the Bachelor show, right?
Much better than the Bachelor show and the roses and all of that. And I love that idea of vowing to take care of someone for 1 year. It sort of goes back to hand fasting, where you'd vow to be with someone for 13 months. And after that time, if it didn't work, you were both free to leave. No hard feelings, so, you didn't have to lock yourself in forever. I'm not going to say anything, Jeff, but,
Well, I forget which tribe, but in one of the first people, Native Americans, when you were tired of someone, you just say, stand away. That was it. That was the divorce.
It'd be nice if it was just that easy, right?
It would.
Right. It would be nice.
For some, maybe it really is. The thing about love is that, we may look at it only on, Valentine's Day, but, love is it's one of the few, I won't say quadrillion-dollar industries, but multi-trillion-dollar businesses out there, because love is everything. If you think about it, every aspect of business is love, whether we like it or not, right? But every brand wants your love. Every brand wants a piece of you, everything. So love is many things, from the heart even. And I could argue that if you're loyal to a brand, right, it's there's love in there. Now, maybe a different kind of love than we were just referring to, but it's still spelled LOVE. And I think that love, is blind, and at the same time, it's so many things are built on it. So many things.
Everything, you're right. It's everything stems from that. But what do you think, Jeff, about this epidemic of loneliness, considering you're an expert in social media that is so connective? It's sort of.
I'm someone who could walk into a crowd of 500 people and be lonely. That sometimes when you're with a lot of people, you realize that you have nothing in common with them, or so you think. And so all of a sudden you're manifesting all the reasons why you don't want to connect or cannot connect with these people, even though you're in a crowd, sure. So you're not technically by yourself, but energetically you can be. And so having the comfort level, sometimes quiet gives you a chance to be introspective. And we should also not confuse introspection from weakness, right? There are people who are by themselves on purpose, and that's how they get inspired. That's how they channel. That's how they create. Yes, there are countries in the world. I have friends in places. I used to be on the board of a company in Iceland, and I can tell you that there's certainly times when, because the days of light are very little in the wintertime, there's lots of depression in certain countries. And but the connectivity we exist and live in today can offer chances for people not to have that lonely feeling, but requires them to be open to being connected, which is different. It's almost like saying that we have so many applications on our phones if we want to allow them to connect us, but we have to be open to those connections. And because loneliness happens in many different states, and states of minds and states of being. So I have felt more lonely in a crowd of 500 people than I have by myself. And I felt lonely going to large events where I want to find other people from my tribe. I cannot find anyone. And I have to be comfortable that being a misfit is okay.
Yes.
And then I find strength because I know that I'm okay. And so for me,
a holiday for misfits.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle Marie just made a good point, and we all see this, she's saying where she lives on the West Coast, everyone, when they go out to a restaurant, they're still looking at their phones. They're still sitting with someone else, but they're all looking at their phones. We've seen that so much, right?
Oh my God.
It's an addiction, I guess, that
right. So
it's that way.
So we live in these very weird times, right? That if we to ask someone to turn their phone off to actually spend 30 minutes of privacy with you is a big thing.
Yeah. And I think also when you're talking about social media, part of what's making it worse is, people are putting their best stuff on Instagram or whatever. Yeah. So here they are happy, and someone bought them expensive roses or candy. And then you look at it and you go, well, no one bought that for me. And maybe there's something wrong with me. And it's the comparison, especially today, literally today on Valentine's Day, that people get even more depressed. They go, I don't have that life. And they don't realize that half the time those people don't have that life either. They're just posting.
Yeah. It's a confrontation. I mean, with the filters on the faces, you can't be that beautiful. You can't be that active. You can't do that yoga pose. It's in so many ways we're confronted with our own confidence, which it's disempowering in many ways if we allow it to be.
In our book, The Soulmate Path, which was originally called Love, Light, and Laughter, and here we just happen to have a copy. One of our 1,000 books that we use. We're actually sitting on stacks.
Well, this we wrote it like 21 years ago.
Yeah. So our friends bought a publishing company, and they said, "Well, you can tell us your relationship secrets." And we said, "Well, we don't have any secrets." And they said, "Well, you better get some because we're publishing the book." So Amy and I both, in different parts of the house, wrote the same exact thing. If you're not satisfied with being by yourself, you're not going to have a good relationship.
So the whole first part of the book is about being alone, how to feel whole within yourself, how to feel balanced within yourself, so
Yeah,
that you
and-
can draw the right partner if that's what you want.
If that's what you want. And that's why the chapter is like, are you a tiger or are you a swan? Because tigers live alone and they get together to mate, and then they live alone. And swans
And they
mate
like
for
that.
life.
They like being in their cave. They
Right.
like,
Of course, we had to find out that some swans don't mate for life, which screwed the whole thing up totally. But yeah, this one in East Hampton had to be a curve wrecker. Yeah. But you know, that's
we're
there's-
trying to make the point, like we're all different that way, even though we've broken into two categories, but to accept yourself the way you are. I mean, people always say to us, how can you two stand to be together all the time?
and we're like,
We're
what are you
like-
talking about? We like being together, but that's one of the reasons that some people don't want to get with somebody else. They're afraid of losing it. You know, well, it's like we're sad because we had our cat, you know, because Zane's gone, but at the same time, we're glad that we had him. So there's some people, that's their line in the sand.
So Monty posted about this swan tiger thing today, and people said, well, some parts of my life I've been a tiger and some parts I've been a swan. I think that works also, because sometimes whatever the journey is, you have to accept it and learn from it and grow from it. 'Cause basically we're all alone, no matter what. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what.
Yeah.
And how many? I mean, every wisdom tradition says, "Be alone, you know, be still and know, sit still and it'll all come to you." But when if you decide you want to be with someone else, you get yourself to magnetize yourself or resonate or whatever, and you attract it.
When you're ready, because
when you're
that
ready.
other person is also getting themselves ready.
And if you don't want to do it, that's great.
I'm
Whatever.
so glad you said that, because one of my pet peeves has always been with therapists who, at a certain point, people are in therapy and they say they're alone, and immediately the therapist goes to, well, okay, let's work on what's wrong with you that you're alone. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe there's nothing wrong, and maybe I like to be alone. Or I know people who love, you know, their ideal relationship is 3 days a week, you know, or someone, you actually, Monty, you once told me that my best relationship, I don't know if you remember this, when we were on that ship, you said, Barbara, your best relationship would be live close, visit often. I never forgot that. You know, it's like not everybody wants to be, but you're made to feel there's something wrong with you if you're not in a relationship. And I know someone now who's a therapist who's really questioning that and really starting to write about it. And it was like, yay, it's about time people started to look at it. Not everyone is the same.
It's 100% true. And in astrology, the first house is you, the opposite house, the seventh house is partners. And if you have planets there or a lot going on there, you get in touch with that planet or energy that's going on in your seventh house through partnership. So those people are going to be more inclined to approach the whole issue of partnership more than other people.
And it can manifest as business, or, you know, of course we know pets can be soulmates. I don't even
For
like
sure.
to call them pets, but you know, our animal friends, you see that kind of love, that's a soulmate love
Yeah.
that you can have through that.
I know this subject definitely is something that needs to be addressed. I mean, you're saying about this psychologist, that friend of yours is writing about it now. I mean, they could have wrote about it a little sooner.
Well, I mean,
Well, this is someone who became a therapist later in life. Okay, so give her a little, you know.
No, I'm
No,
glad-
no, truly, yeah.
I think a lot has changed just as our times have changed, you know, as far as having children also. I mean, we're a couple that decided not to, but that's something that people feel pressure also, you know, that they're supposed to. I work with a lot of young women at Bergdorf's where I show my clothes, and it's always so interesting. So many, and they know Monty's psychic and reads them, but they're always asking when they're going to have children. This is like they're not in a relationship.
Right.
And we kind of like steer them, you know, if you really want that, you know, maybe something else has to happen first.
Talk about the cart before the horse.
And they're like savvy in every other way. But there's this pressure from parents or society or what they think they're supposed to. Just like you were saying, with all the imagery out there of other people's lives that might not even be a real life.
No, look. I think first on Instagram, yes, I think Instagram has certainly been a major source of depression for many people, because a lot of people project images of a life they want to have or want others to think they have, because their business motivation is to influence. So sometimes they take on a false or fake persona to do so, and unfortunately, I believe the studies have shown that it is a great source of depression.
Wow.
You also, we have the other side too of, break the norms, right? So that what happened in the past doesn't necessarily have to be the path that you follow, but you have to find strength, and you have to be strong enough to find your light and be comfortable with who you are. One of the things I remind friends on Valentine's Day is, as much as it may be a day of love, it's also a day of self-love. It's to do the
Yeah.
things for yourself that no one else will ever do for you, and to remember that. And while I would like to believe we have rituals for self-love daily, perhaps, there is something to be said about doing things for ourselves, particularly when the lens is focused on it, so that we can avoid some of the depression. We can avoid the things that bring us down. And every Thursday I host a live music show, and with a live acoustic music. And I have to tell you that, of course, love is the number one inspiration for the sad songs that the artists perform. And so, it seems to be, the answer is no, you don't have to be in love to write a love song. But it seems most love songs that are sung on my show are sad songs rather than happy songs. And for many of the artists I've been interacting with, they say it's much easier to write a sad song. That for some reason happy songs don't get to be as popular. But love is the answer. Love is the catalyst. Love is everything in the arts and in every part of inspiration. And I do think that, over the last 15 years, the advent of social media has probably had a negative effect on all of us collectively. We need to find ways to bring strength to people that were lonely, where if they are experiencing loneliness, and God, if you are feeling depressed, there are phone numbers you can call right now, wherever you're living, that will be people to counsel you and help you through depression. Because you should not ignore your depression, and do not ignore anything at all that where you're feeling your life is at risk. Please don't listen to us. Please listen to people who can help you immediately. Because there's too much. We have epidemics of depression, which lead to suicide. Which I have friends of mine who are in that industry, and they're always giving, helping people. And so, on the other side of that, to find strength and to find ways to align yourself so that you accept you for who you are, and you learn to love yourself and to be kind to yourself and grow from there. And so that's why I could be in a crowd of 500 people, feel alone, and be okay. I don't leave. It's not like I walk in and I leave. I actually stay. And occasionally I find other people leaning against the wall, or I find other people who feel the same way as I do. And I make great friends that way, because we go into the hallway and we say, "What was that?" And then it's pretty amazing. So I'm not looking for sympathy or empathy. It's just, I know what it's like to be alone when you're by yourself. But I just know what it's like and I'm the one who creates events. So here's the complexity is, I create events. I bring people together. At least I used to bring together thousands of people. Yes. And I know what it's like to be the host. So the reason why I host parties, the reason why I host large conferences, is because I could get over shyness, because I have a reason to say hi to everybody. And what's ironic, of course, is when I'm saying hi to people and people don't know who I am, which is just the point, is that I'm the one who was hosting. And it's like, well, who are you? It's like, well, why are you important? It's like, well, I don't know, maybe because I am hosting you guys. But it does bring out, so it turns out being shy is how I ended up in the events business, because it gave me a chance to, with a nice way to love everyone, to embrace creativity. And so for me, it was just ironic how it works out. But I do think that but being alone is okay. It's a strength. And to Amy, your point, I think you guys are magical, and to love and appreciate each other and to give yourself space to be is a magic that's unique. And too often people don't appreciate that until it's not there, right? And that's the other part about love, is that sometimes we only celebrate people who are gone after they're gone. For some reason, we only celebrate, and I don't know why that is, because we could love each and every day and share our love and express ourselves to everyone all the time, even if it gets effing boring. but I don't think there could be too much
It's
love,
never boring. No.
Never boring. Yeah.
right?
Well, this idea of self-love, I think, is very misunderstood because people think it has to do with ego or
No, I'm
whatever.
not talking about that at all. I'm not at all. Although I still think it'd be really cool. One thing that artificial intelligence could come into play one day is if you ever want to buy yourself, let your browser buy yourself a love gift or a birthday gift, is give your browser a budget for, I don't know, $50, $100. Buy the one you want, that it knows you want, that you'll never press buy on, that you keep on going back to, that no one knows that you want, and have it send it to you anonymously. Why not? That would be fun.
I know people who do that actually, who actually buy themselves presents and, have them gift wrapped and sent to themselves, But I want to say one thing, Jeff, when you were talking about the music and how people want to hear sad songs, I think there's so much codependency around that actually somebody, maybe Monty and Amy remember, I can't remember, this is way back when, maybe in the 80s, somebody wrote a codependent love song. I can't remember his name. And he used all the titles from the old songs from the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it's like, I can't live without you. My heart is broken. I'm going to, I'm nothing without you. All of these, he called them codependent love songs. Okay. And people, especially young people, and I know when I was a teenager, I could listen to the same sad song 200 times and cry. That's like I kept playing it over and over and over. Luckily, I don't do that anymore, but I did do it in the past. So that's another thing, is that our messages constantly that we're hearing from some of this music is saying we're nothing without somebody else. And it's giving a very bad message.
Well, that's true of movies also. We always say, why can't somebody make a nice movie about a happy relationship, about
happy ending?
But you need conflict, right? And drama.
Well, yeah.
Oh, it's the same in the song industry, I suppose. But
and sometimes people say, well, you guys should have your own TV show. I say, people would be bored to death.
Maybe not as much as you think. I think it would be a fun TV show, but in the case of the artists that are performing on our shows, they're just singing what inspires them, or they're singing about. So I always ask them, if this relationship was a relationship that inspired the song, does that person know you wrote about them? And embarrassingly, yes, all the time. And that's how they could sometimes confront their issues, is by singing their song to that person while they're in the audience. And it's like, okay, you're much stronger than I could ever be. And that's pretty.
Well, people have an easier time talking to strangers sometime about personal things than talking to the person that they need to talk to.
Where there's normally, yeah.
Yeah, I remember I worked on talk shows for years, and you'd go, why is this person sharing this stuff in front of millions of people on national TV when they won't turn around to their partner or their mother or their friend and tell them? And it was easier for them because they didn't have to be as vulnerable. There was some kind of a safety in it.
That's interesting.
Wow. That Jerry Springer would defend them?
So, Barbara, do you have we have some specific little rituals in our Enchanted Love Tarot, which is all about relationships. But do you have some for today for different purposes? I guess one purpose would be if somebody wants to magnetize more love in somehow, or we have a little thing for loneliness I'll share.
And you said you had a spray?
Yeah, I do. I have a love spray that is fabulous, actually. And I've had people tell me that when they wear it, that all of a sudden they're attracting all of these people. I mean, as we all know, scent, is the only thing of all our senses that speaks directly to the brain. So it has a very strong effect. And the energy also, especially of rose, has been used for centuries and centuries to open the heart. So number one, I am doing a love activation on Fridays on Zoom. So if anyone wants to join my love activation, what?
We want to know what that is.
What it is? Well, for me, and it's what you were talking about, Amy and Monty, that you want to be love. You want to resonate on the vibration. So if you think that love is outside you, you're separate from it. So the idea is to really open your heart, since most of us, and I'm as guilty as anyone else, as shutting down my heart sometime.
I can't
so
believe that about you.
Oh, yeah. I could open it to a lot of people, but in my own personal relationship journey, I have been very protected, having gone through an ugly divorce and stuff. And I did. It's sort of like that story. Do you all know the story of the Golden Buddha? I'm sure most of you know. Well, if you don't, they found in Thailand an amazing, huge Buddha. They were going to move it to another place, and it was just covered, all mud, just like a normal Buddha. And as they were getting ready to move it, all these workers are working on it, and one of them chipped the Buddha. And all of a sudden they noticed all of this sparkly stuff, and they go, what is this? And they discovered this is a Buddha that was solid gold. And because they were guessing this monastery was about to be attacked, they covered the Buddha in mud so no one would know, in clay, so no one would know it was valuable. But then the monks must have all been killed because nobody was left alive to know that it was still a golden Buddha. And when they finally discovered it, it was this incredibly valuable piece. And kind of the spiritual moral of the story, this is a true story, by the way, is that we all do that. Anytime we're ever hurt, we cover parts of our heart. And eventually we lose touch with that precious gem that is inside of us, which really is our heart center, our heart space. And the kind of journey, and I think the two of you have done it excellently, Amy and Monty. You've really opened your hearts to each other. You've softened. And as part of this love activation, Jeff, that I'm going to be doing on Friday, it's how do we open our heart to this vibration of love? And when we are love, truly, to say, I am love and feel it, then we are more vulnerable in a good way. I don't mean you should walk around being vulnerable to the whole world and getting your head chopped off. But, we're vulnerable enough to receive the other person's love and caring and to see with new eyes, not just to judge them on what they look like physically or they don't fit our picture. And I've noticed over the years when I've done this, people have actually, who wanted to, and that's a good point, Monty, that you said not everyone wants to be in a relationship. Right. But when they did want to, they discovered their partner, the right partner for them at that moment. And it was because they were willing to open their hearts. And I think that's one of the hardest things that all of us in modern day have to learn how to do, is really how do we open our hearts to another, and yet at the same time, hold good boundaries. So that's what we're going to be doing on Friday in the love activation, is raising your vibratory frequency and literally opening your heart so that not from the head, but here, that you are precious and you are worthy and you are enough. And I'm not saying that one session will change everything. You might need therapy or you might need to work with someone on that more, but it opens the door. And that's really important. I see our friend Heidi is on here.
I saw that.
Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah, who's also really good at love. Heidi is a real good relationship coach. And we've talked about this many times, is how can you be vulnerable with somebody? It's not easy to be vulnerable, but it's so, so important if you truly desire love in your life. We have to be vulnerable with our friends, our family, our children, or, whatever, to have that kind of real relationship. Otherwise, we're really not in a relationship, I don't think.
I think what you're talking about is so beautiful, but it's also so important now because there's such divisiveness, that we hear. We have to protect ourselves from. There's a lot of hate and anger being flung about, whether it's politically or people feel angry, so they take it out on other people. So, to really reinforce the love energy, the love chakra, and to be in that frequency, it's so important. And whether you're looking for a relationship or just trying to survive in these times.
Right. Yeah, because to me, the more of that love and light, and I don't mean woo-woo-y, but the real stuff, that's your real protection.
Mhm.
Because if you have that kind of, I know that when I meditate and I'm really bringing in that light, for me, it's always from the heart. One of my early teachers, Biziou, always said that the only transformation happens in the heart center.
Yep.
And this is the year, as you know, of the cosmic mystic heart. It's the year of the lovers in Tarot. And to me, what that means is equal partnership with self, with God, with other people, so that there's an equal flow. And it doesn't have to mean, yeah, I give you 20%, you give me 20% back, I'm counting. But you know what we're talking about. So this is the year of the cosmic mystic heart, where our heart has to guide us. One of the rituals I do daily, and it's very short, is just literally to put my hand on my heart and to breathe into my heart and to allow it to open. And then I just say to my heart, what would you have me do today?
Nice.
You know, and allow my heart, just like you had your goddess guide me, oracles, it's like, let your heart guide you. And then you use your brain to make the strategies and set the goals and all of that stuff. It's not you throw out your brain, but it's not coming from the mind, it's coming from the heart.
Yes.
And that's
Well,
the best ritual we
intuition,
can
right?
do.
I think that's intuition. I mean, we talk about it being in your gut lots of times, but I think it comes from your heart.
Yeah. You know, the ancient Egyptians, I'm just passionate about ancient Egyptian rituals. So, you know, before COVID, I would do my spirituality in the city and take people to the Met to do all of these things with ancient Egypt. But one of the things the Egyptians did when they were mummifying people is they sucked out the brain and they threw it away, but they saved the heart because they didn't feel that the brain was really important at all, that the only thing that was important was the heart. And that's what's in that canopic jar that you see in museums, and that was the realm of reincarnation, because when you got to the afterworld, so to speak, your heart was weighed. And so the goddess Ma'at weighs your heart. And if your heart is not as light as a feather, meaning you're not holding anger and resentment and all of that, then you go on to the next plane. But if it is, forget it, you're eaten, and you're gone. You don't go forward. You have to learn. So I love that concept of how can we make our heart as light as a feather? Yes. And that is releasing that anger and shame and embarrassment and guilt. And again, it's not a one-shot deal. It doesn't happen overnight. However, it's a good intention to have, I think.
Well, you have to be vigilant. I mean, we always say you can't just brush your teeth once. I mean, it's a little daily thing. It's not that hard to do either. Something to incorporate into your routine.
Yeah. I would love to know your ritual for loss. You said for being lonely?
Yes. Well, in the back of our Enchanted Love Tarot, we have lots of love spells. So the one that we wrote to overcome loneliness says, take a piece of paper and a pen and focus on your loneliness with this feeling right on the piece of paper. Loneliness, please let me be. Let me flee from your misery. I pray for comfort, warmth, and friends who truly love me for who I am. Then you fold up the piece of paper and imagine the loneliness being locked inside, bury it in the earth or throw it out with the garbage.
I love that. I love that. There's another ritual where you take a flower and you put all of your sadness or anger or whatever it is into the flower. And then as it ages and falls apart, symbolically, that is releasing all of the stuff from you, and then you give it to the earth.
That's nice. That's like the death card in the tarot in a way. With the loss, there's a rebirth always.
Right. Yeah.
Tell you, the subject of love always comes up against the silence wall. No, it does, because
it's so big.
It's so big. It's awe-inspiring, because it's really why we're all here.
We have messages about how to end a fight, how to open your heart chakra, relieving stress. Relieving stress is like the key, right?
Yeah.
That's what locks us up.
Well, the lockdowns are starting to end. I've been saying for a while they were going to end in April. Like Norway just said no more yesterday. So everyone's going to be coming out of their out of their cave like the groundhog. And I think while we were in the cave, we did see our shadow. Everyone got in touch with their shadow side. And I think there's tremendous potential for the world to be a better place after all these horrible lockdowns and the divisiveness and all this other stuff.
I think in some cases it'll be like a bird in a cage and the door opens and the bird's afraid to fly out.
Yeah.
I think during this transition time, so we have to all help each other feel safe to enter the new chapter.
And to be gentle for our own resistance, where we're resisting, instead of yelling at ourselves about it, to be really gentle and kind, to know that some things might be hard for me that aren't hard for you, or for Jeff, something's easy, and for someone else it doesn't work. And that's that whole social media thing we were talking about before, where some people are going, oh, it's over. I'm going to have a party. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And other people are like, oh, no, it's not safe. And to be, everyone has their comfort level, and to be gentle.
Well, that's the self-love we were talking about, to embrace who you are, which astrology helps us so much with understanding our individual traits and quirks and energies, that we're also different in that way. So naturally, we're going to have a different response. So we have to embrace that it's okay to be who we are, and it's okay to be who you are.
We once studied with this man, Professor Kaiserling, and he was actually a friend of Gurdjieff, like a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he said,
friend? Wow.
Yeah. Gurdjieff said, I don't want you to be my student. I want you to be my friend. And he said to him, when falling asleep wakes you up, you're making progress. So I think one of the things of being aware about your inner dialogue is when you start to be down on yourself, and that should be your tripwire, because, we're all pretty okay. And it's the worst things happen when we think we're not okay. I think anyway.
And also, to be a healer, you were talking about your own experiences, Barbara, that harden your heart or open your heart, that makes you a healer, and it makes you able to help other people. So if we didn't have all these experiences that helped shape us and form us, we wouldn't be able to understand or reach out or be empathetic or understanding.
And I know that everybody who's come to ask the oracles is a person who in their own circle is a teacher and a healer, and everyone's looking to you all. We're honored that you all come here every week or when you can.
We're all always learning and sharing.
Yeah. And there's Heidi.
Where is she? I'm not seeing Heidi. I have to go look for her.
You might be on speaker view. If you have the view, you go to gallery.
Oh, there she is. I see her.
Yeah.
Hi, Heidi. Talk about love. Heidi is a radiant love being.
Yes, she is. And
can we hear her?
Unmute Heidi. Is that okay? And then I'm asking her, actually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have
unmute, honey. You can do it.
Hear me now?
Yes. Hi. Talk about love, friends.
I was listening the whole time. I was just in the other room getting dressed.
Oh.
Today.
That's good. You're getting ready for Barbara to come visit, right?
I am. That's to me is my love, when my friends are around, when they show up in my life. I loved everything that's being said. As you know, both of you, all of you know, I work with clients all the time. And the only thing really worth it, it's like everybody thinks it's so mental love. It's like such a non-mental thing. I loved what Barbara said about burying the brain, not burying the brain, getting rid of the brain and just going to the heart. And it's like,
keep away from you two.
It's a new Valentine's ritual.
That's it. Like, cut out the brain. But it's true. It's like, why is it when we wake up in the morning next to someone we love, we're not thinking, we just reach out. That's not our brain. That's just well, it's a few things, but it's mostly, it's so present. And I know for me, the number one thing is service. To me, that's the highest form of loving. So when my heart's shut down, I serve. That's it.
That's the way to go. I couldn't agree more. I always said to people, I said that the male role is written on the side of every Los Angeles police car, to protect and serve.
That's right. And for a son of a cop, it's a good thing. Auntie.
It's
But
true.
it's true. I mean, people don't believe it. I literally, there'll be days when I'm not like just feeling it. And I'll be at the supermarket and help some older woman, which at this stage of the game
Is that
older is relative. But I'll help somebody out the door with their groceries, and they'll just turn with such
Whether they want to go out or not. That's also known
exactly.
as the bum's rush. Come on.
Exactly. And then I'll just go in their purse easily. No.
right?
But seriously, it's like it's not that complicated. I always like stop making love complicated.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a song.
It's
Jeffrey, somebody could do that on your show.
Right. But that would be a good ritual to do today is everybody go and do some kind of even to me, and you know this, when I see a homeless person on the street and I decide I want to give them, money or a sandwich or whatever, I always look them in the eye and ask their name. Because to me, that's the highest form of love, is saying, I see you.
Yeah.
Especially, so, I mean, or just to help someone, like you said, open a door for somebody, or it's hard to smile if you're wearing a mask, but if you're outside, I guess you could smile. But just, that would be a great ritual to do for Valentine's Day, is help somebody today. Call up a relative who you haven't spoken to in a while, write a sweet text.
Do
You
I
don't have to.
I have my uncle who I haven't spoken to since 1978. I guess I could surprise. I don't want to kill him.
Hey, it could be will time. You never know.
I've probably forgotten my name. God, this is turning into quite the love experience.
All kinds of love, right?
Yeah. Well,
I always remember we used to go on these cruises, and that's where I guess we met, or
that's where we met Heidi.
that's where we met Heidi and Barbara, and we used to have such fun. That was a love fest, wasn't it?
Okay, we didn't go on these cruises.
I'm still wearing the ring I bought on your birthday, Amy. It was Amy's birthday, and Monty wanted to buy her a present. And we went to a jeweler in Puerto Rico, a Greek jeweler in Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
and we all bought jewelry for Amy for your birthday. So that was love. That was a little self-love, right?
Yes.
We
totally.
were with the author,
Rona Jaffe.
Rona Jaffe.
And I think Shakti was on that too, right? Was she on our cruise?
She was, but that's another story.
Okay. Right now we're talking about love. So
That's true. We're talking about love. So Jeff, what do you got cooked up with love and your various conferences and television Zoom shows?
Well, I'll just say that I happen to love music of the 80s when it's reinterpreted by people who were not born in the 80s. So on Thursday, 7 artists, all of them born in the 90s except one who's probably born in the 1930s, all doing music of the 80s. And
wow.
Looking forward to how they reinterpret the music, because it's really, I've heard a few demos and it's songs the lyrics to, but we may not even recognize based on the arrangements. So that's Thursday. So that's fun. For me, that's because I happen to love music, and I just enjoyed talking to songwriters who are honing in on their craft and give a stage to folks all over the world to both connect to the artists and to their music. And so it's a community mostly of singer-songwriters and fans of live music. So that's on Thursday. So I'm doing that this week. And it's a big event in the sense that it's not just a typical show where people are sharing their own music. As far as conferences, Monty, I have 2 things happening. One is in April, I'm bringing back the Vaughn conference again. We had a fun event at the end of January, and my exploration, my passion for the future of communications continues with what I'm doing at the end of the 3-day conference, looking at the evolution of communications and where the internet's going. And I haven't announced it yet, but I'm bringing back the 140 conference, which ran from 2009 to 2016, and it was happening. It was back when social media was young and people were trying to figure out where this was going. It was, for a while anyway, the place. I hosted it all over the world, so it was very inclusive as possible. And so that's all coming back to life in May. So those are 2 things I'm doing from my heart. to help bring the people that I know together, and maybe especially people I don't know.
Are there any plans to do a live one?
That's all. I mean, in person.
Yeah.
Well, on the 140s, I'm going to encourage people to do their own events, to curate and host on their own, following a set of guidelines, which they can choose to interpret or not. They used to be decentralized like that back in the day. As far as my own plans for like a Von conference, I would like to think I'm doing something in the fall in person. The challenge I have is the audience that has been attending my events live and paid are all over the world. And so while 20 years ago, I took for granted the fact that I host an event, I announce dates, and literally people from 57 countries show up. I don't know how practical that is now, and to have the diversity. And so while I may have physical events in certain locations, because I'm prone to do that, the globalness of what I'm doing, I kind of like put on separately, because I haven't figured out how to navigate hybrid events yet. I either want to be all in person, all in virtual, but to navigate the boundaries between the two would take away from my own flow. And so I know that I'm my best when I'm in the moment, and so I want to stay in the moment. So I have the door open, Monty, for physical gatherings. I absolutely love live music that way. Love to experience things that way. For the conference side of it, until recently, it wasn't cool to have people convene in a location and have people beam in from all over the world to talk to you, because one of the reasons why I would travel to a conference is to have that serendipitous moment of meeting somebody, discover someone. And so if they're not physically going to be there, then why am I bringing people together? Well, of course, for some people to meet each other, but it's not the same thing. So I haven't planned a physical gathering yet, but it's bound to happen. Right now, I'm focusing on April and May and leaving the door open for what happens beyond that.
Right. Because one thing we haven't talked about on this show is people are meeting each other online and not being physical. And there are people getting married meeting online, right? I mean, Barbara, you would know this better than I do. I'm acting like I know what I'm talking about, but
No, really. No, truly, I'm finding that people are connecting very deeply. I mean, I run a women's circle every month, and I changed it online. I did a vision workshop this year online, and it was amazing the connections that people actually got to make with things like breakout rooms. You could be in smaller groups and actually share. So it doesn't matter how many people are at a conference or an event if you can give them into small breakout rooms. And people have made friends and relationships. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and who is it? Our friend Ariel Ford said that more people were finding relationships during COVID because nobody had the bandwidth to be as superficial anymore. And it was like, okay, so what are you really doing? Who are you seeing? Who aren't you seeing? How are you dealing with lockdown? So the conversations became more real, and it cut through a lot of the bullshit of that you might have done just meeting in person all the time. So I think it's both and. It's not one or the other, but certainly connections have definitely been made through the internet. Like I said, I just taught a class the other day with, a 4-hour vision workshop, and there were people from all over the world. And like you said, Jeff, I mean, that was amazing to me. And they got to share with each other. And when you talk about loneliness, I mean, one person said it was the first time in 2 years she's felt like she was able to share what had been going on for her during that whole pandemic. So there are a lot of breakthroughs that can happen if it's done in a way that allows for vulnerability. Some people don't run it that way as much as possible. I personally like to, have that sharing at all if it's possible, so people can feel connected. But I've done fertility rituals online where people have had babies. So obviously there are connections that could be made, through the internet that we thought only could be made, in person.
Those Ethernet cables, boy, they're capable of amazing things.
Look, there's something to be said about, the power of just voice, right? So it's, for me, no matter how technology continues to evolve, voice to me will remain the killer app. That being able to, because there's so much metadata associated when you speak to somebody, whether it's on the telephone, via Zoom or something else, and being able to see the person, is important too, but it's the ability to communicate and the ability to connect. And so I don't want to downplay that, because that's I think valuable. And in terms of, having a vulnerable state and respecting each other's energies and being able to create an environment where people can speak freely and openly, I actually been doing that for almost 2 years. We'll be 2 years in May, so whatever that is. Twice a week, I host networking groups where it's passion-based, where it's really about, I never ask anyone what they do for a living. It's really all about where you're coming from and what are you passionate about. And that has set the doors to be open for people from around the world to connect and meet people they never would have met, perhaps, in a very loving kind of way, if you will. We're fueled by love. It's like for my conferences, currently, my current sponsors are the color purple, the numbers 1 and 8 for life, and the letters LOVE. They're my major sponsor of my events these days. And it was better that in 2020, if I did an event, the letters were WTF. So they kind of so the letters LOVE outbid WTF. And I'm happy to do that. And so so there are things that, you can create or co-create in a beautiful way online. And I don't think it's either or. I think there is this discovery that we're not alone anymore. Like 25 years when the internet was happening commercially, there was a big promise that wherever you were in the world, people could contribute. And that turned out to be a big lie, because of the fact that we had dial-up. We didn't have broadband. Connectivity was only in certain places. But we're now coming into an era where a few years from now, right now, I think there's 3 billion people connected. I mean, when I got active in the internet, there were 16 million people in 95. So we're getting closer. We're not there yet. There are 8 billion people in this world. So we're not even halfway there with the connectivity, but we're much closer. And you'll find that when the world connects to itself, things change. And we can bring more love into this world, and we can provide more comfort, and we can empathize and share empathy around the world, as long as we find people open to receiving. That's the other part about love, right? You want to give it, but is the person ready to receive it? And how often, sad Valentine days, or like if you're a guy and you want to give someone a Valentine's gift and they're not ready to take it. That's because there's balance in this world too, right? So that we're assuming that there's even giving and taking. Sometimes we have to deal with our energy vampires, people that just want to suck away your energy, and they don't respect your walls. They don't respect the no. They just go and go and go until you just block them. And there are others who you want to express deep love to, and they're not ready to receive you. So there's timing and balance and connectivity, and all together, running the gamut. So I think love is a multi-trillion-dollar market. It will always be a multi-trillion-dollar market. There's no way around it.
No.
You got a ritual coming. Amy's going to pull
I
some
was just
cards.
thinking maybe we should pull, collective
Cards.
message.
Yeah.
This is from our Enchanted Love Tarot.
Oh, we love it.
Part
I
of
have
the
all
$1 trillion, part of the $1 trillion love industry. We're
I think
happy to be part.
I'm just saying that love is everything. So it's, whatever the size of the GDP of the world is, love is a big part of it.
This is interesting. We get the opposition card.
Oh, love it.
Love
There's
it.
the 7 of Swords. We call it the 7 of Wings.
Yep.
So what's opposing your opening your heart more? What's opposing you feeling love more? What are you putting on that opposite side that you feel is against it? I think that kind of is describing that polarity that we feel in everyday life now. Which side are you on? So embrace the opposition. We're all just people, right? Whether they're think exactly like you. I mean, basically, who thinks exactly like you do anyway?
Right. That's true.
But yeah, I think, extend a peace offering to the opposition.
I love that. And I also like the idea of being curious. So when you're listening to someone, you might hate 95% of what they say, but if you could be 5% curious to try to see where they're coming from, it changes the dynamic.
Well, it's so important in relationships, right? That's how you find out. That's how you go deeper. That's how you find out about yourself, by that kind of dialogue, which is so important.
And also, Jeff, when you were saying about wanting to give, it just reminds me of that book, The 5 Languages of Love. everyone perceives love or needs love in a different way. For some people, it's the words, it's, sending them a card, giving them a present. For someone else, it's the touch, or for someone else, it's doing something for them. So if you're in a fairly intimate relationship, meaning it could be, your friends, your family, whatever, if you kind of can get a sense of what's important to them and give them that, not just what you need, but what they need, that also can shift the balance a lot.
And sometimes we're blind to it also, right? We just don't see it.
Yeah. Oh my God. When I do readings for people, astrology readings, and it's indicated that there's like love right around them. And I point out it might be someone they know. A lot of people are like, well, it can't be that guy. And I'm like, well, maybe it is, because people do have opposition. And I think one of the oppositions people do have is, Barbara, you said it before, they have to be a certain height, they have to be a certain this, they have to be a certain that. I don't understand that personally.
So Joyce brought up what we all know, that it's not love versus hate, but love versus fear. We were just watching Marianne Williamson on Bill Maher last night, which she brought that out in Return to Love, her book about you either have love or fear. You can't have both at the same time. But everyone is scared, right? We've been so scared during the last 2 years and confronted with our fear and confronted with how do you deal with your fear? And is it your fear or somebody else's fear? But yeah, to make way, you have to push that aside to really open your heart. Barbara, do you want to lead us in a little heart opening?
Sure. Because again, it's all right. So just everybody, just take a moment, placing your hands over your heart and just closing your eyes for a moment. And just imagine you could breathe in and out through the heart center, very gently, as if there were a flower inside your heart. Just allow it to open very gently, petal by petal, spreading warmth, opening. You may feel a sensation in your heart. And just think now, I want you to think of someone you love unconditionally. If it can't be a person, maybe it's a pet. And just imagine from your heart, from this well of love and compassion, caring, empathy, like an artesian well, you can just send this love out to that person or being. And now open to receiving it back. And just notice your relationship to receiving. And again, think of someone else you love unconditionally. And just send this love out to them. And now open to receiving it back tenfold. And just notice your relationship to receiving. Make a choice to allow your heart to open to receive even more. And one more time, sending out this unconditional love now to someone that you totally love unconditionally. And then open to receiving it back 100-fold. Expanding your capacity to give and receive love. And then very gently open your eyes and just give yourself a hug and just go, say your name and just go, I love you. I love you. I love you. Because know that the body doesn't know the difference between you giving it love and someone else. It just feels that love and then opens.
How beautiful. Thank you so much.
Great.
What a beautiful way to end.
Wonderful.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
So powerful. So beautiful.
So come join me in my love activation on Friday at 7:30 New York time on Zoom.
Wow.
Thank you, Barbara.
Is that in
Lots
the?
of love spray to all of you.
And we'll see you Wednesday on Instagram.
Yes, and Amy and Monty are going to be on my Instagram Live on Wednesday at noon.
More fun.
More fun.
Thank
Hey,
you, everybody.
Thank you,
for joining us.
Jeff.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Amy and
Lovely.
Monty.
love
Thank
to-
you, everybody.
You know
Mwah.
what? If it's Mondays, it's time for
Ask
Ask the Oracle.
love out to all. We'll see you back next Monday.